Today we're going to be making a swordfish Milanese with some fresh lemony asparagus and a spicy brown butter that even the pickiest of eaters is going to like, and it takes no time at all to throw together. So let's just jump right into it. Now right here I have a swordfish fillet, and I asked the seafood guy to cut it a 1/2 inch thick, give or take. Sometimes swordfish will come real thick. We're going to do this in the style of a Milanese, which is basically the same technique of like a breaded chicken or a chicken cutlet. So the thickness of the swordfish is important. We don't want it too thick because then we're gonna brown the thing beautifully, but the center's not gonna be perfectly cooked. And we don't want it too thin or else we're gonna overcook a swordfish, and you don't wanna overcook fish ever. I found a 1/2 inch to be the perfect thickness. And it usually comes with the skin on, but we need to remove that. So we just wanna take a sharp knife and slice that skin off. And you're gonna notice this little blood line there. You can notice a little fresh blood around there, so I'm just gonna slice and trim off a little bit of that bloodline, and then we're left with a clean fillet. And then we're gonna set up our 3-stage breading station, and first are the breadcrumbs. We're gonna go with a fine homemade breadcrumb or plain breadcrumb, and we're gonna add about a cup of that to a pan, along with about a cup of panko breadcrumbs, which are coarser breadcrumbs, and they're gonna add more crispy. The fine breadcrumbs are gonna fill in those bigger gaps. Season it with salt and get it mixed, and we're gonna add some Italian seasoning. It's just a bunch of dried herbs and spices that are gonna add a really nice flavor to the bread. Next, we're gonna add 1 egg, and we're gonna beat that with a little bit of salt until it's no longer stringy. By the time I'm done beating it, the egg should just flow right off the fork. Then we're gonna go in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, a little bit of salt, and mix that up, and your breading station is assembled. So now we just wanna lightly season the swordfish, get it into the flour, get it nice and dredged and covered, then into the egg yolk, coated in the egg, and then into the breadcrumbs. This dish is directly inspired by one of John George's new dishes at his new restaurant, the Fulton in Seaport, which I highly recommend. Beautiful restaurant, and they serve a swordfish Milanese just like this. Once coated in flour, you wanna just pat off any excess, and then you wanna dip that into the egg. Again, fully coating the swordfish in the egg, making sure the swordfish is completely coated in the egg, and then we're adding it straight to the breadcrumbs. Once it's in the breadcrumbs, you wanna make sure it's nice and coated. Flip it. Make sure the breadcrumbs are nice and even. Sprinkle some breadcrumbs on top. Gently push them into the swordfish. And we want to make sure there's no remaining wet spots, no areas of bare swordfish are present, and it's just completely coated and nice and dry. And then we're going to take that, place that in a nice dish. We're going to set that in the refrigerator until we're ready to cook. Now, of course, farmers markets are in season, and so is the spring and early summer vegetables, and asparagus is one of them. So we're going to match the fish with some asparagus, and we're going to make it nice and bright and acidic and lemony. And when you get asparagus, sometimes you get really thin ones and sometimes you get really thick ones. These happen to be thinner ones, and I'm not as worried about the toughness at the bottom that I do the thick ones. These are a bit more tender. They don't really need to be peeled, but if you do get the bigger ones, you might want to peel the bottom half just to remove all the toughness. But I'm just going to give these guys a little trim and they should be good to go. Mainly, I just want them to fit into like a pan. So then I'm gonna need 1 cheek for the asparagus, and I need some garnish. So I'm gonna cut another cheek. And then always remove the seeds before you serve it. So then that's gonna be a garnish on the plate. And then for the sauce, we're gonna basically just take some good European butter, some Kerrygold. We're gonna brown it and then flavor it with capers and chopped hot cherry tomatoes. So it's almost like a spicy brown butter kind of relish. It's gonna be bright. It's gonna counteract the richness of the butter and the fried fish. So I'm gonna cut about a 1/2 stick of butter, and then I'm gonna measure out about 2 tablespoons of the capers, get that into a little bowl, and then a whole bunch of these hot cherry peppers. We're just gonna chop them up to kind of match the size of the capers. So we've got our vegetable prepped, our sauce prepped, and our swordfish prepped. Of course, if you're making this for multiple people, you prepare more. All we have to do now is throw it all together, and it should come together fairly quickly. So you want to get a pan on medium heat, and you want to preheat that well until it's hot. And then I set up a little sheet tray with a wire rack for the swordfish when it's done cooking. Then into that hot pan, I'm going to cover the bottom with some olive oil, ready to adjust the temp however I need to. And then I'm going to gently lay the swordfish away from me into the pan and let that first side fry. And I'm going to let that cook for about 2 to 3 minutes on that side, looking for the edges of the swordfish to begin to brown. Constantly managing the heat of the oil, making sure it's a nice calm fry. And I'm gonna use this fish spatula that's slightly offset. That's gonna allow me to gently dig under the swordfish and flip it. And once I see that browning happen nicely around the edges of the swordfish, give it that flip. And then while that other side starts to brown, baste that top side of any pale spots so you can get a nice even brown across the swordfish. And then once that swordfish is browned on both sides, about 5 to 7 minutes total, transfer it to that wire rack, and then a little flaky salt right as it comes out of the oil. Drain that oil and then wipe out that pan. Get some olive oil into a separate pan for the asparagus, and then into the pan you cook the swordfish in. We're gonna toss in that half stick of butter and begin to brown the butter. On about a medium heat, we're just gonna let it go until it starts to foam, and then you're gonna start to brown the milk solids that you're gonna start to see accumulating at the bottom of the brown butter. And you wanna take that to a fairly dark stage, almost like a coffee color. And once it gets to that stage, you wanna get it out of the pan immediately so that you don't burn it and take it too far. It should smell delicious, sort of nutty. Once it's out of the pan, you're gonna add the cherry peppers and the capers to it. It's gonna sizzle, and then you're just gonna mix it all together and let it cool slightly. Then you wanna add the asparagus. We're just gonna season that asparagus. We're gonna cook that until it's lightly browned on each side and is just cooked through with a little bit of bite still in the center of the asparagus. And then we're gonna turn the heat off and hit it with some lemon. That lemon's just gonna bring a little bit more acidity. It's gonna balance the richness of the fish and the brown butter. Then it's time to plate. The asparagus goes in slightly off-centered, and then we're gonna take the swordfish Milanese and just sort of lean it against the asparagus. A little bit of a lemon wedge for the swordfish, and then we're just gonna spoon that bright, colorful brown butter sauce right alongside the swordfish. And what you've got is a beautiful weeknight meal that everyone's going to love. And that breading encased the swordfish and keeps it so moist and so tender. Say your kids don't like fish, they're gonna think it's chicken, I promise. Swordfish is moist, cooked to perfection. All in all, it's just a really fantastic weeknight meal, especially in the summertime if you ask me. If you wanna give it a shot, recipe's gonna be down in the description. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself. I think it's time you might want to brush up on some Cacio E Pepe. I just made a new video teaching of various methods on how to create the creamiest Cacio E Pepe that you've ever had. I guarantee it. Give it a shot, and thanks for watching.